Here they come, and here we are, the Duval Dive, back here with you, a Jaguars podcast. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, who writes for the Jaguar Report, and my man, the champion himself, Travis Holmes for BigCatCountry.com. Busy man, wrote 3 articles yesterday. Make sure you check them out on BigCatCountry.com. Bing! See, you opened the show with the bing this week. How you feel about that, Travis?
Hey, man, I feel like a champion for real. I appreciate that.
That's right. Hey, listen, a day in the life. And you know what? You know who else will feel like a champion, Travis? Whoever reads your updates on BigCatCountry.com. I said it! Anyways.
Double bing. I love it.
Double bing. Don't look that up on Urban Dictionary. Anyways, let's get back to football here. Listen, speaking of a double bing, 2-0 out in London. Handled the business there. Of course, we talked at length about the defensive effort that was battling the Falcons, exposing Desmond Ridder, as we both very much predicted. But some of us didn't necessarily predict the Jacksonville Jaguars victory like I have. And no, I'm not even citing this show. And listen, I think, you know what I think the biggest problem is, Travis, the reason why you picked the Bills, you had the shirt ready to go for This Team Makes Me Drink, and you wanted to have that as part of the production, if in fact they did not. Well, hey, listen, I picked this game to be a victory back in late August, early September.
That you did.
On the Student of the Game AFC South preview. Bing! Actually, I might have even mentioned it on the AFC East preview as well, talking to my guy, Steve, the Bills car guy, in the AFC East preview. So that's a whole other thing. By the way, Student of the Game on Wednesdays at 8:40 p.m. Eastern. Usually I was on at 9 p.m. To talk with my guy, C-Lou, who is a Indianapolis Colts expert. Didn't necessarily mean for it to line up with this Sunday's action. It just kind of did. But I talked to him, of course, about Jonathan Taylor's contract, and you and I may delve into that if we have a little time here. But first, let's recap the fantastic London trip. First of all, and I know fans will be heard about that who are members of the Duval down in and around and surrounding Everbank Stadium. And I'm sure as more and more news comes out about the stadium renovation, you and I will talk about it more. I'll put it this way. There's 2 plans that are coming out, 3, I guess. I don't know, but there's multiple plans coming out about how they're handling it. Shad Khan talked about raising $2 billion for the project. There's a plan for them to relocate for 2 years and accelerate construction. There's a plan for them to hold games at limited capacity while they do construction. They're exploring all sorts of avenues. I give them that much credit.
Which would be a 1-year plan, FYI.
Yeah, exactly. There would be 1 year, only 1 year, where they wouldn't
away.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Essentially 1 year away, one in the part of a year limited, and that's a different option that we hadn't really talked about. So that's one that got a lot of traction. And
I have my question about how practical that is, but listen, at the end of the day, I'll say I'm not here to speculate. I'm just here to tell the world what they're talking about if you haven't heard about it yet. Anyways, why is somebody from Orlando trying to brief people on Jacksonville news? I don't know. What do I know exactly? What I do know is the defense showed up big both games in London. And I even wrote about it in the Jaguar Report about how the defense handled business, in particular one Darius Williams. Listen, for those of you that pay attention to PFF scores and all this stuff, leave it aside for a minute. This dude had an interception, the only interception in the game, by the way, props to Trevor Lawrence. Then over and above that, this dude had a pass defended, 7 on the season, among the NFL's best. And then, oh, by the way, led the team in tackles, led the team in taxes. We aren't talking about the Jags moving to London. Taxes. What? Anyways, more on that later. You might see an article about that at some point on the Jaguar Report. I'll talk about that a little bit and why the Duval devout don't need to be scared about that permanent home stuff. Anyways, said it, Travis. But I do mean led the team in tackles with 7 as well. And by the way, forced the fumble that put the tea in the crumpet at the London games there too. So Darius Williams with a huge day. I mean, Travis, you can't deny that he was a big part of that win.
No, he was incredible. And I say incredible. And that's the part that obviously, I'm a DB. I played DB in college. I coach DBs. Like, that's my thing. That's my heart area. And unfortunately, he did what he's supposed to do. He made the big plays. He made the tackles. He put on his big boy pants, and in a very difficult matchup, he showed up. However, to your original point, discussing PFF and throwing that to the side, he did also give up some plays. But again, you're in a really tough matchup with some really quality receivers, and he gave up a lot of deep plays, the long pass and the quick drive to Gabe Davis on the sideline,
That would have been
a lot of deep outs he gave up. I mean, like, so I understood why they rated him negatively, but those impact plays, you gotta weigh that heavier, because again, that interception that flips the field, it changes the game. That's it's 7 points potentially off the board.
and how
Same
well
thing with the fumble.
did the Jags score off of it? So if they did, that's more than a 6-7 point turnaround, right?
Oh, that's a good point. I'm not 100% sure if they did
I
score
don't
that
think
drive
they
or not.
did, but even still, to your point, points are off the board. But actually, it just so happens I happen to have it. You know what, Travis? If I'm looking at it correctly, yeah, the next drive is a Jaguars touchdown, 14-point flip. Travis Holmes.
No. So then, yeah, so that's got to weigh something. That's got to mean something more as far as your raw stats are concerned. And that's the part of the raw data is concerned. And that's the part that stinks.
Well,
But
this
again,
is
he
like
had a good game. You can't say it's incredible because of the amount of catches that he did give up, and because of the obviously they scored on 2 of the drives that he ended up giving up some of those longer catches. So I understood why there's that dichotomy of he had a great game and he had a bad game at the same time.
No, and listen, one that can be said for the Bills' offense in general. I mean, basically
That's
being
true.
dormant for the first 3 quarters for all intents and purposes. But listen, for all the good that happened with that interception that we're talking about on the stat sheet and in the Excel spreadsheet, there's style points to be had. Check this interception.
You're 70 yards down the field. Most quarterbacks just can't make that throw. But D-Will, he catches up to the receiver. He keeps his eyes on the quarterback, and he just goes up and high points the ball. And at the end of the day, you don't expect that from most DBs. That's a receiver trait. That's great hands. That's going up and getting it. And again, that is putting your big boy pants on and going and snatching the game.
Yeah, and listen, we've seen big plays from Rayshon Jenkins. We've seen big plays from your guy Tyson Campbell. Andre Sisco has had his share on the year as well. But listen, a big one there, and I think that's why I put the spotlight on Darius Williams. He's a good player. He's made plays throughout the season. But I think this is his foremost game in terms of impact, regardless of what the numbers would have you say. And to your point, Josh, maybe it's that awareness of one Josh Allen being there, who can uncork the ball. Say what you will about his propensity as a gunslinger and to occasionally do risky things. The dude can sling the ball down the dang field, and that may have been part of why Darius Williams was ready and watching.
Hey, smart man. Watch his film. I love it. Stay with the receiver, because you never trust it to get that the play is over. I love it.
Hey, man, listen, this is the reason why you're wearing the polo this week and not the This Team Makes Me Drink shirt. But hey, listen, speaking of things that one could say would make you drink, Trevor Lawrence throughout the game, I feel like made a lot of plays, and that the score was not representative of what the Jags did offensively. What would you think is? I say only 11 points. They were leading at the half against a a Bills defense who, and I might have said this last week, has probably the most underrated core of defensive tackles in the league. Foremost at Oliver, but the group in general is fantastic. What do you feel like was making the offense sort of struggle throughout most of the game?
Well, I don't know that there is one thing, because if anything, well, no, I take that back. They did better at third downs. They did better, as far as the money downs were concerned. The main thing that they struggled with was when they kept getting down into the red zone and turning the ball over. I mean, that really is it. Like, they left on the field at least, and I believe I had it written down, on Thursday. I said Tuesday, sorry, for a different podcast and I believe it was a 13 to a 21 point difference as far as the points that the Jaguars left on the field by either penalties, drops, or the turnover, or the 2 turnovers in the red zone. And that in and of itself is basically the difference of this game being a 5-point game and this being a blowout, the Jaguars beating them by 25, 28 points. Like, the fact that the Jaguars picked up 29 first downs tells you everything you need to know, because when everyone was going crazy about the Miami Dolphins offense, and when they scored 70 points against the Denver Broncos, they picked up 30 first downs. And that's an incredible NFL game. The Jaguars did the same. They just couldn't close the door when they got to the red zone.
Yeah, no, and here's the thing. You mentioned third downs, Travis. Here's excuse me, the Jags obviously struggled early on third down. I don't think anybody would argue with that. They finished
Mm,
10 for 18. I believe at one point in the game they were 1 for 5. So,
mm,
they didn't start all that hot. They got hot later in the fourth quarter, kind of like the Bills did in general. But yeah, the 29 first downs, a lot of them, to your point, they didn't even need that third down action. So, hey, that's a good way to convert. Leave it out of contention. That's a good move for me. Listen, and to your point too, the Bills kind of had the late surge, both teams scoring in double digits in Q4.
mhm.
And listen, I definitely think that was the key to it. The catch of the day for the Bills was certainly, if you ask me, the Gabe Davis catch that put them in range to get touchdown number 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end, or excuse me, that would have been the third touchdown. I beg your pardon.
I know what you're referencing though.
Which one?
But for me, the play, the thing that made this game, because again, even though you predicted this game in the offseason, and I did not even predict this game as a win for the Jaguars the week of the game,
last week. That's right.
we will say, as of last week, what was my caveat? I said if Travis Etienne rushes for over 100 yards,
You
I will
did.
change my score to 27-24 Jaguars. But I can't say I didn't think that they were going to do it, because the Jaguars, as a team, even going back to last year, struggled running outside zone, and the Bills struggled to stop outside zones. It came into the going into the game, they were giving up 6 yards a carry at teams running outside zone against them. Jaguars leave the game running 9 yards a carry running outside zone with Travis Etienne, and that's the biggest reason that closed the game out.
See, but here's what doesn't make sense to me. And granted, I think in particular to the Jags, the Bills also pretty weak against the tight ends. Evan Ingram, of course, had some big moments. So I think that's part of it. But I would add this, Travis. If you have the core of defensive tackles that I acknowledge the Bills do, and this, and teams are going to run to the outside, how are you letting it happen? Unless you're doing things to account for Evan Ingram. That doesn't make any sense to me. Or, hey, maybe their defensive ends and linebackers just need that much work. I don't know. But you would think they would be more prepared for the outside run and let Oliver and company handle the middle. I don't know. What do I know? I'm not the defensive guy here.
That's a hard one, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's the fact that they really just missed Greg Rousseau that much, and I know they end up losing another defensive tackle in the game, because again they already struggled running out,
Well,
stopping outside zone.
Tre'Davious White missing as well, I think, was a factor in a lot of ways too.
Oh
Not that
yes,
particular facet, but yeah. Listen, I'd say what you will. I like Tre'Davious White, regardless of the fact he does not play for a team I cheer for, nor a team I cover. He's a good player, man.
but the Jaguars attacked Kyer Elam the whole half until he got benched. Like that's the one who Calvin Ridley kept burning over and over and over on those speed outs until they took him off the field.
Other than that one he caught over Micah Hyde, though, there's that.
Hey man, that's great football though. Even the best DBs, and again, I respect Michael Hyde's game. So me. Again, I'm a DB at heart. I respect Michael Hyde's game, but hey, even the best DBs are going to get beat, and Michael Hyde does not run like Calvin Ridley, and he just outran that young man. Unfortunately,
yeah, exactly. No, and listen, we could talk about Calvin Ridley all day. I would make the argument that this was the catch of the game for the Jags, at least style points wise here from Trevor. One of these many awesome third down conversions where he has pressure right in his face here. Let's get the early points. And that's the main element in how they get 11 and a half, man. I mean, what would you add?
No, man, that you said it. The fact that this is a third down conversion, which the Jaguars have struggled with this season, it converted this one. It's a red zone series, which the Jaguars have struggled with this season. They converted it, and you also have things not going right, even on this third down play. The fact that Brandon Scherf pushed off the assignment on Ed Oliver to Luke Fortner, who just looks like he just whiffed on the block, didn't touch him at all, and got Trevor hit in the face, and somehow Trevor still makes that throw. That is all the things. It worked out perfectly. Like Trevor's ability kind of overcame the offensive line blunder. All these things are just a beautiful thing to watch, because again, these are all things that haven't gone their way, and it finally did.
Yeah, and more interior line stuff. Obviously, we've cited that as certainly a weak point in the offense. Just in time to see DeForest Buckner again in Everbank Stadium. We'll get to that statement. The last point I'll make: Trevor Lawrence on third down with pressure or while getting hit delivered so many strikes. It's reminiscent, and let me tell. To me, it's reminiscent, and let me tell me if you like this comp of young Aaron Charles Rodgers. This dude was it. That offensive line that went to the Super Bowl, I would argue, is the worst offensive line in a worst winning offensive line for a Super Bowl winning team, right? David Bakhtiari, I'm not here to say he's good, but the reason why he gets the props he does is because he was just competent in a line that often wasn't. But Aaron Rodgers would cover a lot of those things, as Trevor did on third down a lot. What say you, Travis Holmes?
That's a hard one. That is a very difficult one because Rodgers, they are similar in a lot of the clutch ways, but they are obviously their games are different, and that's the piece where I'm stuck deferring.
Yeah, their games are different, but they would if Trevor were playing for that Packers group, he would be in a position to where he would lead the team in rushing yards like Rodgers used to. He would have to make those throws with pressure and stuff like that. Are elements of the game different? Sure. I think it's more as a product of the teams they're playing for and the styles of offense they were playing under with the various coaches. McCarthy versus Peterson, for example. Ain't no way Mike McCarthy's going to coach the way based on what you read about in Doug Peterson's book. You know what I'm saying? That's not happening.
I think that's a fair point. The fact that the offense that Trevor Lawrence is in and that the coach that Trevor Lawrence has means Trevor Lawrence actually has to learn to read defenses. Not to say Aaron Rodgers doesn't, but we've literally, if you're a football fan, you've seen the videos where Rodgers says he's not reading defenses on a lot of plays, which is why he avoids the middle of the field. That he's done that throughout the vast majority of his career. He just doesn't attack the middle of the field. He throws guys open on those outside of those hashes. That's his way. And from that perspective, I say Trevor's different only because at least I know he's actually reading coverages. He's throwing those guys open, but he has a skill set that is eerily similar to him. You are correct, sir.
So would you say it's Trevor's intelligence that's sort of the vaccine for my Rodgers comparison? Too soon? What? It's a joke.
Mr. Pfizer. Gosh.
No. Hey, listen, if we're talking that, Mr. Pfizer was not an effective vaccine in Everbank Stadium other than one touchdown. Anyways, we're throwing the jokes all over the place. Let's get to the Colts, man. Listen, I got to tell you, say what you will. Before we get into the nitty-gritty and the X's and O's of it, Travis, if I'm a member of the Duval Devout, there are two things that scare me in particular: DeForest Buckner and the intangibles. I'll let you talk about DeForest Buckner in a little bit. The intangibles I see: the Jags open the season breaking the streak to where now they're 2 wins in the past 11 at Lucas Oil. There's a streak waiting for them. What is it? 8 straight? 9 straight? I've kind of lost track, but and I also forgot to look it up before I hit play. That's on me. But there's that. Then there's Madman Minshew coming into the house. Uncle Rico himself going to be getting the start as Anthony Richardson is facing injury. He's going to want to stick it to the Jags. We know about how players playing against their old teams, it usually means for a big day for a quarterback in question, especially if your pass rush happens to be not necessarily the strongest beyond one man. Between and then, oh, by the way, getting back the vengeance from the week 1, such that it was as well. There's a lot of intangible there, Travis Holmes, that I think works in favor of the Colts, and I think will accent the importance of getting a good start for the Jaguars. Because the moment the Colts believe, that's problem 1 in the game. Wouldn't you agree?
Bingo. I fully agree with you. You don't want this game to turn into what the Bills Jaguars game
was. Yeah.
what for the Colts game was, but also for the on the opposite side of the coin for what the Jaguars Bills games was. You smack them in the mouth early, and they just take 2 quarters, 3 quarters, whatever it is to recover. You want to put the teams that you should beat away early, because the longer they stay in it, the longer you have a problem.
That's a great point. I like that too. And of course, problem 2, in my opinion, DeForest Buckner versus that interior. Listen, line him up against the guy who isn't sure if Fortner and let him tee off. You know, I feel like if you neutralize Etienne, not to say Trevor and company can't do it, but they'll have a lot lower chance of success because the games where the Jags have been balanced are the ones they've won. Interesting how that works, huh? So, yeah, not to say, well, they were sort of balanced in the Houston game, just nobody was catching the passes. So there's that.
But no, but the DeForest Buckner, just like it was in week 1, nothing's changed as far as that's concerned. They've only played the Indianapolis Colts defense has only played better as far as their ability to dominate lines. So that's going to come down to, does Fortner have his big boy pants on? 1, 2, is Scherf going to play a better game? Because again, he also did struggle in that the first game against the Indianapolis Colts. It wasn't just Fortner. Maybe this Tyler Shatley plays to a higher level of what Ben Barch played in that first game also. It's going to be really interesting to see now that we don't have the Walker Little, and we don't have Walker Little, and instead we will have Cam Robinson manning that left tackle spot. How do the Colts pivot? What do they do on their end? We've already been surprised by the Kansas City team when they put Chris Jones on Anton Harrison the whole game. No one really expected that. So there's some gamesmanship that still can happen. Again, when we're only 5 weeks after the first time we played them. I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to look like, but Fortner, as I stated earlier, with the busted protection that got Trevor hit in the mouth, he's got to play better because it doesn't get easier this week, and it won't get easier next week or the week after.
How big a deal was it that the Colts beat the Titans?
Oh, I mean, we're fighting for sole place in the AFC South this week. I mean, that'll be the thing for sure, and more importantly, from the Jaguars' perspective, the fact that this game is even happening is something wild to me because it hasn't been talked about a lot. The fact that they chose the Indianapolis Colts to play this week, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that.
Not according to Coach Peterson. They chose the bye week. They did not choose.
They have the option to choose the opponent. So whether or not they did or did not, I guess that's a different conversation because the NFL has historically every year stated that they give them the opportunity to choose their bye. And if they don't choose to have the bye the week after London, they get to choose their opponent. So if they chose not to choose their opponent, that's a different thing.
You might have caught Coach Peterson in something then because he was asked about that.
Bingo.
They didn't have that choice. So
the NFL publicly said that they give teams that option. So if they didn't accept that option, that's another thing. Or he just doesn't want to give them bulletin board material. That's another conversation.
I mean, I think either. Because they need more with Rico at quarterback. Like, come on.
Man, but no, you got Minshew mania. Oh, you got Minshew mania coming to town in the revenge game situation. Not to mention you have Dewey for the Jaguars saying that he got ran out of town. Woo. Yeah.
Voice last year. I mean, he was the guy that would always be coming out of the off the field into the locker room. It was always the Jags. I saw it in person. They're waiting in the hall to get into the locker room.
Yeah. No, Dewey's a good guy, but it was just I didn't, and I know a lot of Jag fans didn't like how that sounded and it was just word choice when he stated that basically that Minshew got quote unquote ran out of town, and I'm just like, oh, that's not gonna play well in the Jaguar with the Duval devout when they hear that.
I like that.
When they hear that, so that's a hard one because so it's a revenge game for Uncle Rico. His quarterback coach in Jacksonville, Denny Thompson, is always raving for this man, and he has gotten so much better. Looking at his film from just last week, man, he is actually taking checkdowns. He is actually like moving and matriculating down the field and not just doing the off-script plays that we know him for. If anybody remembers the Minshew Mania, we know him from all the off-script stuff where he's just extending plays and making it happen because he didn't have a choice. Now this guy's actually being a veteran quarterback and moving the ball down the field. And that will challenge the Jaguars defense in the same way that it challenged the Jaguars defense playing against Houston. A quarterback who gets the ball out on time and just makes the simple checkdowns. They will have to play disciplined defense.
Well, and of course, with the Colts coming to town, I would have to ask now that the deal is signed, and he obviously didn't play last week. But you got to wonder about the impact Jonathan Taylor would have. I mean, listen, say what you will about Zach Moss and him having a big game against the Titans, such that it was. But Jonathan Taylor, does he have the ability to have this big impact this quick? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, that really just depends on what kind of shape he's in. I mean, his ankle injury obviously shouldn't have any additional issues as far as that's concerning now, since we're this far past his actual recovery. But no one can really truly answer that unless you've seen him in person playing football, getting hit a few times, and kind of seeing what that looks like. But at the end of the day, you are still playing a Jaguars team that is really, really doggone good at stopping the run.
Let me build that for you, Travis. Going into the London game, facing Bijan Robinson, 84 yards a game. Leaving London, heading into Everbank Stadium, where they're trying to get their first win as a location, by the way. 81.6 rush yards allowed. So, I think that's what you're referring to, buddy.
Yeah, man, it's a Mike Caldwell masterclass, and that's what it's been all season so far. I mean, we all came in raving about this offense. Meanwhile, this guy's just putting his hat in the ring for to be one of the next round of coaches, getting one of those head coaching interviews.
Yeah, man, listen, I get it. No, fantastic stuff. But we're at that point in the show. We touched on all the big things. We relived the joys of the Duval Devout in London. We talked about how karma may have an impact here at Everbank Stadium. I doubt the Duval Devout want to see 0-3 in their house, which would just be such an anomaly. But what's the score?
The Boo Birds will be out early, I'll tell you that.
I mean, at least they won't be wearing clown masks, but that's a whole other question. Travis Holmes, who you got and by how much?
I got the home team, sir. I got the Jaguars. I got them going 34-21.
And actually, if the score does go that high, that does not favor the Colts, because that means they weren't able to control things on the ground themselves. I am not going to give my 24-20 special like I did last week, missing the game prediction by only a single point. #talent. I am going to go 28. I feel like there's going to be some field goals in there. 28-24. I don't see it that close. I'm going to go 28-20. Sounds good. I think Uncle Rico will lead the group to the end zone twice, get a couple field goals in there. We'll see 28-20. The Jags hold on. And that means I guess, well, technically speaking, and I don't bet, but if I were a bettor, I would take the Jags with the 4 points. At least that was the cover when I looked on Tuesday when I was doing the Huddle Up podcast. Bing! I don't know how much the line has moved. But if I'm saying 28-20 at this point, as I evaluate everything with you, I guess I'm saying the Jags do cover, and then I was a dirty liar.
Hey, man, my original prediction for this game was 27-20 when I predicted it on Monday. So I've already gone up off my original prediction to 34-21.
It's so tough to make early week predictions, man. No, that's tough. I don't blame you for that. But with that in mind, what I do have to blame is Father Time. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Duval Dive. Travis Holmes, tell the world.
I can be found on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes.
Oh,
you can Google Travis Holmes Jaguars. It'll be all over the place. But yes, yes, but no, you can find me on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes. You can find me on obviously this podcast every Friday at 11 a.m. The Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast. You can find me on the South Florida Tribune Inside the Pigskin. That's on Tuesdays, and you can also find all of my writings and for all of your football needs on BigCatCountry.com.
Shouts to Scott, by the way. I haven't seen that dude in a while. But anyways, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find my writings on the Jaguars at the Jaguar Report. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Threads as the same, the SOTG. Also on Instagram, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out, obviously, this podcast and my other podcast, the Student of the Game podcast, at 8:40 p.m. Eastern time. Got a lot of great action coming up for you there. Also, check out my work with the Huddle Up podcast on Tuesdays at 8:30, and you'll find all of my offerings, including this show, not only on the Huddle Up YouTube channel, but also on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel, where the struggle is real to be awesome. And don't forget about my work with the 3-point conversion, where you'll get the post-game aftermath therein off of their YouTube channel, and as well as my work with A7BN Sports. That'll be fun for everybody involved, and there might be more on the horizon, Travis Holmes. One might even say I'm a pro sports fan, but we'll leave. Enough with the cryptic language, right? Listen, an honor, joy, and privilege for my good friend Travis Holmes. I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, and until next time, everyone, class dismissed.